You know that moment when they shut you out of their life completely? How cold they seemed, how unbothered. That's just what it's like with a dismissive avoidant. And if you're watching this video, you might be torturing yourself with questions like, do they ever think about me? Do they miss me? Or how can someone just turn off their emotions like that? The truth is, dismissive avoidants don't miss you right away. They miss you when the loss feels permanent. And we're going to use that information to uncover the 3 distinct emotional stages that a dismissive avoidant has to go through before missing you actually kicks in. Now, before I get started, I want you to ask yourself one important question. Why do I really want to know this? Now, you don't have to answer that question at this moment, but really think about that as you're watching this and the next video I recommend. So first, let's get real about what actually is happening here. You're not in pain just because this person is an incredibly loving, emotionally available partner. You're in pain because they detached so quickly and so completely that it made you question your entire reality. You're left thinking, wait, did any of this mean anything? How can someone act like you meant nothing to them? Were you just imagining this connection? And it's perfectly normal to feel that right now. And here's why. What really messes with your head when you're with a dismissive avoidant is this. From time to time, you catch a glimpse of who they could be. Those moments when their guard is down, when they're actually present with you, when you feel like maybe there really is something special here between you. And the difficult truth behind that is, you know they're capable of feeling this deep connection, if only briefly. Now here's what that means for someone going through this. What you're dealing with isn't about love or the lack of it. This is really about emotional avoidance. This is about someone who learned to protect themselves by shutting down instead of dealing with difficult emotions directly. If you really think about it, when things got intense, when you needed this reassurance, when conflict came up, what did they do? They pulled back, they got distant, they made you feel like you were just asking for too much by wanting basic emotional connection. Now, stay with me here, because it's not that you were too much. It's not that you were too needy. It's not that you weren't good enough for them. It's that they honestly don't know how to stay present when powerful emotions show up. This is what it was really about all along. When you're in a relationship with a dismissive avoidant, there are times when you really feel love for this person, but what they feel is panic. Their body reacts with fear, their heart races, their mind shuts down, and all they want is to get away from those feelings and you, because that's how they feel safe. Now let's cut to what really matters the most: how they process the breakup. They don't leave you and then immediately start missing you. That's not how their emotions work. When they end things, their first feeling is actually relief. I know that's hard to hear, but it's true, because for them, your relationship has become emotionally demanding. Your need to feel this connection, to feel reassurance, to have them show up emotionally, all of that feels like pressure to them. So when a relationship ends, if you're a dismissive avoidant, then your nervous system can really start to relax. You feel like you can breathe again because you don't have to navigate your emotions anymore. And that's what's really underneath all of that. What's really going on deep inside their mind when they detach from you is this. In their mind, they no longer have to worry about disappointing you or feeling inadequate when you need something they can't give. This is the part that really stays with you. This is why they can seem so cold immediately after the breakup. It's not that they didn't care about you, it's that there's this genuine feeling of relief from what felt like emotional pressure to them. Now, this is the truth that stings but also sets you free. That relief doesn't last forever. Once you begin to let go, once they realize they don't have access to your energy anymore, once they feel like it's really over, then something starts to shift inside of them. It's subtle at first, but it's there. Now, before we dive any deeper into when they'll actually miss you, there's something you need to hear, because you deserve the truth, not just hope. For many avoidants, that quiet discomfort eventually will turn into them missing you. But for some, it never does at all. And that's because losing you is still easier than facing themselves. And that difference between the ones who start to miss you and the ones who don't shows up in how they pull away, how they cope, and what they avoid. So let me break down the actual stages so you can understand what's really happening during those weeks or months of silence, because there's a lot more going on underneath the surface than you might realize. So, stage 1, this is those first few weeks after a breakup. This is when they feel that relief that I mentioned. And this is where it gets painful. Honestly, they're not thinking about you all that much. They're focused on their freedom, their space, and not having to deal with anyone's emotions. What really stands out here is this. If you text them during this stage, they might respond, but for them, it feels like a burden. Like it's a lot of effort, and they're just doing it to be nice, so you'll leave them alone. Let's be clear. At this point, a dismissive avoidant does not miss you, because in their mind, they just escaped something that was becoming too emotionally demanding. This is also when they might seem to be doing great on social media. They're posting about their hobbies, their work, hanging out with their friends. And it's not necessarily untrue either. They genuinely are feeling better without the pressure of a relationship. Now, the critical thing to understand about stage 1 is that any contact from you during this time actually reinforces their decision to leave. It confirms to them that you must be needy and that they made the right decision by leaving. And if what I'm describing sounds familiar, if you're recognizing these patterns in your own situation, I want you to grab my No Contact Survival Kit. You can find the link in the description below. It will help you work through all of this. Now, this is the trap most people fall into. What happens for most people in this situation is this. Your ex detached and started focusing entirely on themselves, their work, their hobbies, or their friends. Meanwhile, you're panicking because you feel rejected by them. So what do? You reach out. You text them. You watch their stories. You ask them for clarity. You tell them, I'm still here if you need me. You try to maintain some kind of connection. But every time you reach out, they pull away even more, which makes you feel even more rejected, which makes you want to reach out again. And that cycle continues on and on. During this stage, let's call it stage 2, which typically happens from week 2 to week 6. At this stage, they're still not missing you at all. Any contact from you feels like pressure to them. Every text you send, every story you view, every attempt at contact confirms to them that they made the right decision by ending things. Now, here's why that actually matters. For them to miss you at all, the pressure of a relationship has to be gone. But in their mind, your behavior is proving that you're too needy or too emotional and that you're putting too much pressure on them. In plain terms, that means they're not going to miss you because you're still there, still available, still giving them your emotional energy, even though they've ended the relationship. This is when it gets interesting, because when that pressure finally disappears, when you stop texting, when you stop watching their stories, when you go no contact, that's when something shifts inside them. Now, here's what a dismissive avoidant actually feels when you go completely silent. Let's slow this down for a minute and really get into it. They feel empty because what they really wanted was the best of both worlds, to feel cared for without the risk of being too close to you. And that's not a guess, it's a pattern. It's the attachment style they developed early in life. It's their blueprint for connection and for feeling love. Now, there's much more underneath this, so let me take a second to break it down a little more for you. When they were young, love only existed at a distance. Getting too close meant being criticized, rejected, or made to feel like a burden. So what feels safe to them is that balance of staying far enough away to avoid the pain while knowing you still care. And what happens when you stop reaching out is this. It breaks that balance. They're no longer in their comfort zone. They don't feel the distance. They don't know if you still care. It doesn't feel familiar to them. It just feels like emptiness. Now, here's the part that flips the whole story. A dismissive avoidant will not realize the emptiness they're feeling is about missing you. At least not right away. They know they feel something. To them, it's just a vague sense that something's off. And the reason they can't make that connection right away is because they've spent most of their lives learning to disconnect from those feelings. And understanding this will save you a lot of pain and confusion, because what your ex will do next is this. They'll start watching from a distance. They might check your social media. They might ask mutual friends about you. They might even refollow you or like an old photo, but they won't reach out in a direct, meaningful way, because that would require real vulnerability, and they're not there yet. And this is what we'll call stage 3, which usually kicks in around week 6 to week 12, sometimes longer, depending on how deeply avoidant they really are. Now, once you've truly stopped giving them updates about your life, once you've stopped performing for their attention, something interesting happens in their brain. They start to wonder, do I still have access to them? Are they still available to me? This is when you'll start seeing those small signs that everyone talks about. But I want you to understand what those signs actually mean. You might get a text that says something like, "Hey, I saw this and thought of you." Or they might follow you again after unfollowing you. or they'll send you a meme or a random memory. Maybe they'll like a bunch of your photos late at night. But here's what you need to understand, and this is crucial. This isn't about missing you in the way that you miss them. They're not lying awake at night thinking about all the good times you had together. They're not feeling that deep ache in their chest that you're feeling. What's really happening is this. Dismissive avoidants need to feel in control of their relationships. They want to know you're available, but they can't risk opening up to you or being rejected by you. To put it another way, they want the safety of your love without the risk of showing that they want it. Imagine you want this connection, but you're terrified of actually having it. That's what it's like for them. Now, when I worked with parents and their young children, I saw dismissive avoidant attachment styles being formed, where the kids learn that asking for what you need is either dangerous or pointless. So they develop a strategy that allows them to feel safe in any relationship. And that strategy is basically this. I can't let myself want you, but I need to know you'll stay. So the bottom line for you in this situation is this. When your avoidant ex reaches out, it's not because they want to reconnect. It's because they want the comfort of knowing you're still there, while controlling how much they have to feel, give, or risk. Now, this is where your power comes in. If you've done the work to get emotionally clear, if you've rebuilt your sense of self during this no contact period, then when they reach out, you won't jump at those scraps they're offering. You won't reply immediately just to feel seen or validated, and you won't settle for anything less than what you deserve, because you'll recognize the difference between someone reaching out for comfort and convenience and someone who has actually done the work and is ready for a real connection. So let's answer the original question. How long does it take for a dismissive avoidant to miss you? I know it's not what you want to hear, but the honest answer is weeks, months, or even longer. But this is what you really need to understand. It can only happen after your attention completely disappears. Not when you're checking in on them, not when you're texting them, not when you're watching their stories and giving them that dopamine hit of knowing you're still thinking about them. The hard truth is, it happens when you stop showing up for them entirely. This is where the hard part begins. At some point, you'll begin to notice that this isn't actually about them. It's about you. It's about you realizing that you've forgotten how to feel okay without their validation. And when you finally step back from it all, you might start to remember what it feels like to not constantly be anxious about someone else's feelings. And what that really means is you're starting to break the pattern that says your worth is determined by whether someone else misses you or not. Now look, maybe they'll reach out eventually, maybe they won't, but either way, you'll be okay, because you've stopped making their emotional availability the measure of your own worth. If you're ready to start that journey, grab my No Contact Survival Kit. The link is in the description. But know this, it isn't necessary to get that right now, because I'm going to do my best to give you everything you really need to rebuild your emotional foundation from the ground up right here. And you can start by diving deeper with this next video.